Welcome back to the Moti Hour. Idle here, back with another episode. I apologize for not being alive these past weeks, but I am here making content again. So if you haven't checked out the previous episodes from this season, or from last season, definitely go check them out. Also, I do want to wish everyone competing at the big deal Dallas Evolve in Round 1 Grapevine Mills in Texas a best of luck this weekend. I'm looking at you, Dancerush Freestyle Plus people. In this episode, I'm going to talk about social media and its influence on the game, and everything in between. I also had a chat with FNWeeaboo when he visited me and my crew at Round 1, so stick around for that. But if you're ready, I'm ready. Without further ado, let's bring the house down. So, I want to say that more than half of you listening to this podcast got into Dancerush via video on TikTok. Could be from me, Wumi Aisuka, Kana Sakara, or DJ Lonnie from the Melb crew, just to name a few content creators besides me. But I will also say most of us saw a YouTube video from a Japanese player like Zakuro or DRS Shapes, or Riri or Nishi playing the game too. Both guesses are very, very plausible. And it's nice seeing the growth of this niche, especially on TikTok. Personally, for me as a content creator in this community, with the podcast, my own YouTube videos, TikTok, sometimes Instagram, there's a lot of ways to necessarily, quote, promote the game per se. First thing that comes to mind, there's a little thing called syncs. It's a very viable way of posting videos of Dancerush, but however, in my opinion, it comes with a lot of ups and downs. For example, say if I record a video of a random chart, let's say New High by the Herb Shop for this example, since it's a new song. With TikTok, both pre and post Universal Music Group purge, just a little TLDR, UMG took out a lot of their music off the app. But anyways, with TikTok, you have an opportunity to sync your video to a popular sound on the app. I know personally when I did this for this set example, I synced it to one of the stage musics in Tekken 8. The song in question was Twilight Party Crew's Climax for the celebration along the scene stage in Tekken. I guess my vision was to get some crossover in the FGC and RGC. Please don't ping me in Discord asking me why. The Tekken grind is real. Anyways, I've also noticed a popular sound in the Dancerush TikTok community niche is Assumptions by UK producer and artist Sam Gallatry. So, funny that I say that, I was at MagFest and a fellow attendee asked me, is this song, in question was Assumptions, in the game? And I had to basically give the explanation I'm giving you guys in this episode. So unfortunately to a new player's eye, they've been sort of, quote, lied to. But hey, they're still attracted to the game, and that's what matters. To put it in perspective for me, I saw a video from DJ Lonnie, or Lonnie, on TikTok from the Melb crew, and I've been playing the game for a year and a half now. So, look at us, thriving. I also do want to say, don't get me wrong, posting videos with the original audio is another way of growing the game on social media. For me, I do separate my socials in a way. I have TikTok for the syncs and the rest of my platforms with original audio from the game itself. You'll see creators like me, Meepston, Keshki, FNWeeaboo, and countless Japanese players posting videos on YouTube and still getting that traction on the internet because one thing we can all agree is the aesthetic of Dancerush. Oh, and all the colors in the world on that LED dance pad. So, am I saying to choose one or the other? No, not really. If you're new to the content creation game, my best advice for you is to try everything and ultimately be creative in what you do and find your personal brand as a Dancerush player. It'll take time, rest assured, but if you're having fun making content, that's honestly ultimately what matters because yeah, the numbers are cool. Having over 100k likes, over 1 million views is kind of a milestone as a content creator. But ultimately, deep down, in the end of the day, it's not about these numbers. It's about having fun, growing your love for this game, and also persuading people to play the game as well. Because that's honestly it, pretty much. And I always say, if you're not having fun, just ask yourself, what are you doing? Anyways, segueing over to the next portion of this episode, I had the opportunity in March at my round 1 in Broadway Mall in New York to sit down and chat with FNWeeaboo about his approach in making content, plus his rambles about his trips to Korea and Japan, and meeting KC finalist Jake, Riri, and countless other Japanese players. Disclaimer, round 1's very loud, so I had to noise suppress the living life out of my wireless rig. So please bear with me on that, and please don't roast me or call me a weenie again for this portion of the episode. Anyways, here's my talk with FNWeeaboo and my round 1. Enjoy our rambling here.
All right, what's up, everyone? Idle Prep here. We're recording at round 1 in Hicksville, Broadway Mall. Very weird. This is very weird. I'm with FNWeeaboo for the community. What's up, y'all? Y'all know him, y'all love him. So, without further ado, just tell us you are for the people who are first-time listeners of the Moti Hour, and if they don't know about you.
Yeah, so hi, what's up, y'all? I'm FNWeeaboo, also known as Ben or Joseph, depending on where and when you meet me. I do rhythm game content on YouTube, and yeah, I don't know what else to say.
So, since you mentioned rhythm game content on YouTube, like, when did you start that?
Yeah, so I started rhythm game content on YouTube around, I would say, senior year of high school. It was around COVID, so when because I first got started into rhythm games around like junior year of high school, so wow, 4 years ago now, and basically I was really getting into it. I really enjoyed the arcade scene, but then COVID hit, and I was living in California at the time, so it was like the most like stringent lockdown, like, you know, sort of procedures and stuff, so
right.
Arcades weren't open. But effectively, I was just kind of sitting around, like, thinking, like, okay, well, I can't play rhythm games, but I really enjoy it. So I'm like, what can I do with this? And then so I realized, I have a lot of free time during high school. And I also had like this copy of Adobe Premiere Pro that my uncle gave me. So I was like, oh, why don't I like start making videos about rhythm games? Actually, my first, in fact, if you look at my channel, my first video is on Dancerush, which is, you would say, like my main rhythm game. And so I kind of like just, you know, was like spending time like throughout the morning or like, you know, throughout the day, like sometimes in the shower, just trying to like write up a script, thinking about like how I wanted this video to, you know, go, trying to get like a sort of vision for that. And so I ended up making the video, and I realized like, oh, it's actually kind of fun. I enjoyed this process. So I was like, okay, why don't I make another one, this time on Pump It Up? And then just kind of from that, it just kind of spiraled from there, where I'm like, oh, I think I can just make this like a, I guess like somewhat part-time hobby of mine whenever I have like downtime and stuff.
Right, because, you know, COVID like put a stopper on everything.
Right.
Now, since you talked about like briefly talk about like your thought process, like making these videos. Like you have videos of like an analysis of why you should play Dancerush, why you should play DDR, and all, and so on and so forth. Like, can you like briefly like go through like the process of like how you go upon the scripts and stuff?
Right, yeah, so, man, it's been a long time since I've made those videos because of just, you know, college just being so busy for me. But as far as like when I was like the thought process of going into making those videos, I first like, I guess for like Dancerush, it was like, oh, I really cared about this game. I was like, I kind of want to show people like why this game was so cool. So kind of having that in mind. And I kind of usually like, I think, you know, generally like writing, like people always tell you like, you know, in like academic writing, like know your audience, that type of stuff. And I actually, you know, it's kind of true actually. You know, I kind of usually write it with like a certain person or like certain group of people in mind. So usually like if I'm like telling like friends like, oh, I usually like, whenever I'm writing, I'll usually like think about like my friends, like, oh, who do I think would be like really be into this, and then sort of like write that with like that sort of people in mind. And then so I kind of write it down, I kind of like try to break it down, jot it down by outline. And so, you know, like sort of like intro, you know, why you should play, where you can find it, like that's sort of like body. And then, you know, you kind of write the script, then you do the voice lines, which is I think the hardest part. And then as the editing, it's just like, oh, how can I like insert my sort of personality into this? And then that, yeah, that's kind of how the video works. But honestly, as far as like, but I mean, you know, it kind of has developed since from then. I've like taken like just from making more of these videos, I've like I would say like I definitely see myself like writing a lot more notes, like jotting down like certain things that I'm like, oh, I have to talk about this, or like, you know, certain like, I don't know, maybe if there's like a joke that I like was particularly like, oh, I thought this in the shower, I'll write that down, you know. But yeah, that's generally my whole video making process.
Shower thoughts are always the best, that's for sure. Moving on forward, so you've been recently to Japan recently. Talk about like your time over in Japan and meeting like some like Dancerush players like Riri, for example.
Right, yeah, so Japan was a very interesting, it was kind of sort of like on a whim. I didn't really like, I mean, okay, to me, how do I explain this? Okay, so I found like really good flights coming in from LAX to Japan, so I was like, oh, like might as well do it. Like I had some time during like my winter break, so I was like, I'll go to Japan. And for some reason, like everyone and their mother decided to go to Japan. Like at that time, like friends that I knew were like in Japan, like and some like Dancerush players, like American Dancerush players, like Chespy and Proto. They were also in Japan around that time, so I was kind of like thinking like, okay, well, I kind of enjoyed a solo trip from when I like traveled to Korea and stuff like that. Sorry, if I seem I'm like rambling and stuff, but like
You're good.
But like, so I kind of like traveling to Korea was maybe like, okay, I kind of want to go to Japan now, and so I was kind of like trying to plan everything out. Originally, I actually wanted to go with friends, but then like my friends kind of like had other plans, but then I was like, I saw such a good deal that I was like, oh frick, like if I don't go now, when's the next? Yeah, I was like, when's the next time I can see a deal like this? So I just went and pulled the trigger. And so now then, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I realized that I also wanted to meet the local community. Because like a sort of hobby of mine, I guess like I kind of realized from like traveling to Korea and like traveling, it's like it's really fun meeting the local scene. Even like traveling around the United States, like even if I like stopped doing rhythm game content, I don't think I would ever stop being part of the rhythm game community, because it's just fun like being here, meeting everyone in person, seeing where they're at, like how do they navigate life, right, in their different like, I don't know, state or country. And so just getting to know them as people has always been really interesting to me, learning about their culture. And so in Japan, when I was like kind of like planning everything out, I hit up Henry Jong, which I believe he was in season 1 of the Mario Hour. I heard he visited Riri, so I like asked him like, yo, where's Riri at? And he's like, oh yeah, he's in Nagoya. So I was like, okay, now I know where to like go during my itinerary. And then Riri was so cool. I just like, DM'd him on Twitter, or I guess X now, and I was like, in what broken Japanese I had was like, yo, I'm gonna be in Nagoya for these certain days, like, is there a way you can like, meet up, do hangouts and stuff? And he was like, yeah, I'm actually like really excited to meet you, I want to definitely meet you and stuff. So we like kind of organized a few things. It's kind of interesting because that day I actually went to an amusement park called Nagashima Spa Land, which has like a roller coaster, which is like the longest in the world. So like another thing of mine is like I really love roller coasters. I have a hobby for riding them. So I just like came back from like that theme park speed run, and then like went to the arcade, just like meeting up with Riri and some of the other Nagoya locals. And yeah, it was really fun just getting to meet them. I spoke in some Japanese. They tried to speak me in English. It was, language barrier, all that stuff. Trade. Right, but it was fun. Getting to like, the Nagoya crew is crazy. Like, you have people of all different ages. Like Riri's like, I don't know, somewhere in his like early mid 30s. He's like a dad and like
yes,
and like one of the greatest rhythm Dancerush players in the world. But then there's like other people that don't get the same sort of like spotlight, but are still very good like in themselves. Like there's a guy who's like working, almost like reaching 40. You got university students. I met like this like sibling duo where this high school girl and he has like a little brother from like I think middle or I think elementary school, even younger, and he's like insane, like cracked at Dancerush. Damn. So it was fun just getting to interact with the locals. Started practicing my Japanese and just kind of just talking to them. And it's fun because like not only do you like just meet them, most of the time they're like, yo, you want to like get food and like so even off the arcade, you're just like getting to know these people outside of arcades, just being like just breaking bread together, having fun, like just like friends.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So like, just to wrap up this Japan part of the conversation, like say if like for my example, planning a trip to go to Japan, like what would you say like be the best advice to like when you're meeting Dancerush players specifically in Japan?
Yeah, I mean honestly, just be open to contact them, and if you happen to know people like in America that know people in Japan, like, yo, tell them to like, you know, like connect you with them. It's honestly like one of the greatest things that like, that way they kind of like know they're expecting you and stuff. So, you know, that way it makes things like really easy to organize things, or at the very least, like, you know, just be like, hey, I'll be at this arcade at this certain time. If anyone wants to show up, come find me here. But yeah, usually like I said, like, because like since I knew Chesby and Proto, they went to Japan like many times before I went to Japan. So and like Henry Jong, I just literally asked them like, yo, can you like, you know, hook me up with some contacts there? And it's just like, you know, that's kind of how it is. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. It's funny that you were in Japan at the same time when Chesby, Proto, and Min from the Seattle crew,
right?
From the Seattle episode, and seeing that whole tournament in Gigo Nagoya with everyone there, especially like there was the KC group with Nishi, Han, and Kakarazuka. That was pretty cool. Now, since you mentioned it earlier, you were also in Korea like earlier in 2023, right?
Yes.
So you also went to PlayX4, which is like usually a gaming trade show that's there.
Right.
And then you met Jake, right?
I met Jake. I also met like some of the local Korean community. So yeah, it's kind of a funny story. Well, maybe not so funny per se, but basically what happened was that, so I was already on a Korea trip with some people that I knew back in where I go to uni, and we all decided like, yeah, let's go to Korea and then, you know, visit people, you know, in like 10 different cities. But because of circumstances, because flights were just kind of cheaper if I flew in earlier, so I decided like, okay, I flew in earlier than my group. And it was kind of weird because like I flew Air Canada, and like they delayed, and you know, I was like supposed to arrive at like 5 p.m., go to like have some arcade time, and in the evening, like go to where Bucheon Attack is, where nearby where Jake is, and so, you know, kind of do stuff there. But then, you know, I kind of was like thinking like what to do during the time where I was like kind of basically alone in Korea. And so I hit up Jake. He's like, yo, are you going to be at the arcade? And he's like, oh, no, I'll be at PlayX4. So I'm like, okay, what the frick is PlayX4? So I look it up. It's a gaming con. And then, you know, I was like fully expecting, it's like, well, I have nothing to do. Might as well like go and maybe like spend like $50 for a ticket. And then, you know, turns out it's like only $5 a ticket, but
it's not bad for Korea prices.
Yeah, for like 4 days, right? It was sponsored by the Korean government, so, you know, it was great. Yeah, thanks taxpayers, but but yeah, it was a good time. I got to like, you know, go to essentially like my first foreign con, which was like kind of weird but surreal, because I was like first it was my first time out of the country since I was like 6, and I went to Canada, so it's like, okay, that's not really out of the country.
Still in North America.
Yeah, still North America. But then I'm just here at my first con, literally maybe like one of the few Americans there, you know, trying to get by with like, you know, no Korean, you know, basically. But then I was on the Dancerush Discord, and I hit up like some of the guys in Korea, like Toshiyuki, and he's like telling me about like, oh yeah, there were some Dancerush players hanging out at the con, and Jake was also there, so I like got a picture of them and stuff. And so while I was waiting in line during to get my turn on the machine, you know, I was just kind of hanging out with like some of the local Koreans, like specifically Cha Cha, who I think you would probably see on like Twitter or maybe YouTube. Yeah, but he's like really cool guy, you know, speaks English very well, so he was like basically my interpreter for basically a lot of the way through. And then, you know, he was telling me about like, oh yeah, so besides that, like we Koreans are like planning to have like a sort of post-con hangout. And I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of want to join, like do you mind if I like go with you guys? And so they're like, yeah, we're happy to have you. And so we like just went to like a town in Yotsune, which is like some like sort of like a not quite Hongdae, but there's like some night stuff and like nightlife happening there. And so we kind of just like hung out at the arcade, just me like myself and like 10 other Koreans. We were playing Dancerush, and we like got dinner together. It was like a very, very fun experience because like, you know, we were getting like fried chicken and stuff. They're like, yeah, you know, it was so fun just being with, you know, like come hang out with us and like stuff like that. Sorry, I'm just rambling.
You're good.
So incoherent. well, like it was a really fun experience because like, you know, I was basically alone in Korea for 3 days. I barely knew any Korean. All I could be is like 안녕하세요, 감사합니다, 보고 싶어요, whatever. You know, but just being with them, it was like, you know, I've never met these guys before, but like, you know, in a sense, they kind of treated me as like one of their own. And so through that, you know, and cause like, and it was like really interesting because I was like, you know, we were getting food together, and I was like, you know, I was like getting ready to like, oh, you know, I'll pay my share of the bill, you know, and stuff. You know, like American money is like very strong, so I was like, I don't mind. But then they're like, no, don't pay. I was like, oh, okay, like.
Ooh.
Like they were like, it was an honor to have you. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I don't know what, like maybe something got lost in translation there, but they're like, yeah, we were really glad to have you. So I was like, oh, great, I got a taste of Korean hospitality right there.
Very nice, very nice. So again, we talked about Korea and Japan. So for the listeners here, definitely go check out his videos about his trip to Korea. Very fun.
Yeah, if you can deal with like 30 minutes of me monologuing, you know, if you can handle that. But sure, yeah.
If you're up for the challenge, guys, if you're up for the challenge. So going back to more into like Dancerush centric questions. So saw on your YouTube channel, you've also gotten like dancing outside the pad. So like, was that like by like just like it just happened, or did like some other influences happen?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Round one's kind of loud. I know we're like recording
Yeah.
this here.
So okay. So you have a YouTube short of you. I think you learned the carousel from like the cutting shapes in terms of shuffle dance. Like, have you been like dancing off the pad more lately? Like when you, since our conversation earlier, you don't really play Dancerush as much because of school and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I definitely dance a lot off the pad more so now, because one, just to kind of keep myself like in good form, like just learning, you know, making sure I practice my shuffling, cutting shapes. But yeah, like I go to the gym, like me, like every Friday, I usually like hang out at like my gym's like sort of dance studio. And just like I've been experimenting with a lot of stuff. So, you know, obviously there's cutting shapes, which is like sort of like my main style. But recently I've been trying to experiment with salsa and like a lot more Latin inspired dance. Because recently I found this channel that made this sort of cover of Kickback from Kenshi Yonezu, but in salsa. So I was like, that was so cool. And I was like, I gotta learn how to do salsa now. You know, and I just was really interested in like sort of the sort of Latin like style of music, like Fiesta for Fairy Tale, like that was like I think the 6 OP that kind of really got me to like, oh, the salsa samba type thing. And like what is it, Sangen Shoku by Yosobi, very much inspired by Latin music. So I was like really like, okay, I really want to learn sort of Latin dances.
Oh yeah. I would also recommend, like, since I know a bit of myself, like also check out like bachata from that, like, and also like stuff from like the Dominican Republic is also good in terms of Latin stuff. So moving on forward, like you've been around, like visiting Dancerush crews in the States like a lot recently. Like you've been here in New York twice, one with Keshki, and now today as we record this without Keshki, unfortunately. Keshki, I miss you. So like, I forgot my question. So like, you know, like moving, like, is there like any similarities with like all these communities that people like visited and meet up with? Like you were over in California with the Hunt Hills gang, then you're over here in New York. Like, is there like any similarities between like both of us, for example?
Yeah, the similarities in terms of like the sort of camaraderie, the sort of welcoming atmosphere that they had. Like, you know, I mean, I'm just having fun, like, you know, being here right now with the New York gang here around one. You know, just recording this podcast, you know, I was just really sort of touched by like, you know, people are like, oh yeah, you know, we're really happy to have you visit us and stuff like that. And you know, I wish I could do more stuff like that. You know, like I want to visit my guy Nate Easton up in Maryland. You know, one day like doing that with the New York gang, maybe visiting not New York, sorry, Maryland.
Maryland, yes.
And you know, like once in Virginia by George Mason, I think they have like I don't know if they have a community there, but like, you know, stuff like that. You know, like meeting the Virginia community there. But yeah, the welcoming atmosphere. I mean, that's really all I can say because, you know, in a sense, each community has their own sort of flavor. You know, just like different types of people, you know, in terms of personality, I guess. But and just, I guess, like maybe state culture. I don't know. I've just really been like interested in like the differences between all the different regions in the states. But yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a whole lot different. And like, it's so weird that we all culminate together, like some way or another. Like, for example, the Steak on the Lake, Eclipse, and all that stuff for the tournaments. Like, since I mentioned that, like, what's your like experiences like being in Dancerush tournaments like Mistaken Lake 4 in 2021?
Yeah, so I guess like Mistake on the Lake 4, the last one was the 5th one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that one I did not attend because I was I was in New York for some other business. But yeah, as far as Mistake on the Lake 4, it's like a sort of sense of nervousness because I was like, you know, I was like on a whim, I'm gonna join this tournament. Nate was gonna pick me up from Maryland, along with some other Maryland crew, like I think TK and like I forgot the other two, but they were really cool. So you know, just taking a trip to Maryland, and I literally like skipped class that day. My housemates were like, "Yo, why aren't you at school?" I was like, "Oh, I have a tournament to go to."
A tournament in Ohio,
Yeah,
to be specific.
Yeah, tournament in Ohio.
Yeah, so for all you like Gen Zers out there, you'll get a good laugh out of that because you know Ohio. And then just talking more about the game, like we're approaching year 6. What do you think is going to come to this game? Because we always have that fear. It's like, oh, this game's going to die and stuff. Like, what's your hope?
Oh, I mean, my hopes is that we somehow get Dancerush 2 with better cabs. I think I made an entire video just be like, yo, can we get like, here's my wish list for Dancerush.
Yes, definitely check that out.
But like, I mean, honestly, I don't know, because I've kind of been sort of out of the scene. DeMonte right here, just, God
damn it, DeMonte. So, to your point again.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, but honestly, I don't know what to say, mainly because I haven't really been involved in Dancerush so much because, I mean, one, I just am not so near to a cab, and like, school's just been like a thing, so I've been kind of been out of the loop in terms of like new songs, new stuff that's going out, new events. But honestly, all I can say is like, can we get like a new cab, please? Like, that's really.
Please, Konami, please, if you're listening to this secretly, a secret agent from Konami, please.
Yeah.
New cab, please.
Yeah, I guess like my other hope is that like more people are able to sort of like get more Dancerush cabs. You know, like, I think it's such a really cool game that I think people would be really interested in. I just wish that, like, you know, Konami wasn't so stringent with, like, distributing the machines to only, like, round 1 and stuff. Like,
yeah.
You know, I wish they'd, like, you know, make it open for, like, you know, other arcades to actually buy the machines and, like, you know, run them, like, legally, you know, like, on official servers.
Yeah,
like
it's not just, like, an unofficial server in a private arcade. Like, for example, like, Arcade Monsters in Florida, or the Cave in Fairfax, Virginia, which they have their own Dancerush pads running on unofficial private servers.
Right.
I feel like if they had a official United States release like they did with like DDR Ace, like back in 2016, I feel like Dancerush would like spike up in popularity and all this stuff, like just like what DDR Ace did with the DDR community. Like I feel like there's going to be that resurgence instead of the fears and the concerns that this game's dying. So, if you're listening, Konami, check that. And then, just to wrap things up for today, like, in terms, just a couple of questions, like, do you have, like, any favorite songs from Dancerush?
I would say, like, Undercover has been, like, my go-to in terms of, like, songs, because, like, it's just one chart that I, like, know kind of from the bottom of my heart, where I'm just, like, I really love the melody, and just the way you can, like, play with the chart, so I kind of, like, already have that, like, sort of set in stone, so I would say, like, Undercover is, like, one of my most favorite, like, most played songs on Dancerush.
And then one last question for this part of the episode, like, say if like a new player looks like we're at round 1 right now. We see a lot of people that are not regulars here, like seeing like their facial expressions, like seeing how cool Dancerush is. Like if someone came up to you, new Dancerush player, what's your like one piece of advice for them?
I would say like just do it. I mean, you know, it's a pretty fun game. I think you'll find ways to enjoy the game. You know, I think the one other thing I wish like Konami did for Dancerush is that they like actually put more efforts into doing licensed songs, and licensed songs that are good with like decent charts. Like Sugar Song to Bitter Step, which was like is unfortunately getting axed like pretty soon. Like that was the one anime song that actually had good charting.
Right.
So like, you know, I you know, if Konami had more of that, like I think it would, you know, more casuals would be like be more open to playing Dancerush and stuff like that. But yeah, in terms of advice, I just feel like, you know, just feel the music, man. Like just let go, have fun. Like it doesn't really matter what people think of you, because most of the time they'll probably care more about themselves than about you. So, you know, to put it a bit more cynically or crudely, you know, it's like, you know, no one cares. Like at the end of the day, like no one's really gonna judge you most of the time. So just just have fun. Yeah.
It's one thing in the very end. It's a very cool game. Well, Ben, thank you for hopping on for this very impromptu. You know, being in round one, it's freaking loud in here.
Yeah.
So thanks for hopping on.
Oh yeah, for sure. One day, yeah. Yeah, I was happy to kind of have, do this episode.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that was a fun talk / ramble with FNWeeaboo while he was here at my round one. Definitely check out his YouTube and check out his video essays on why you should play set rhythm game. And with that, this concludes today's episode of the Moti Hour. Make sure you rate and you're following me wherever you follow podcasts, and follow at the Moti Hour on Instagram. The website is still a work in progress, so keep an eye out for that. Have a suggestion for me or want to be on the next episode of the Moti Hour? Hit me up on Instagram or themotihour@gmail.com. I'm always open for suggestions. And also join the Dancerush Discord. We just freaked out about the Love You Stamp rerun, and that was like 2 a.m. for me. Besides that, we have over 3,000 members in the server. You can meet more people like me and your local Dancerush community worldwide. And also, make sure to post videos of your performances too. That's discord.gg/Dancerush. Once again, discord.gg/Dancerush. And without further ado, this is Idle Prep signing off. I'll catch you next time on the next episode of the Moti Hour. Peace.